Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing Dredge using the new tool of Satoru the Infiltrator. This is a list I pulled from Mafuz Van Gogh, who is a dedicated Dredge content creator. I will put their link in the description below if you're interested. They make a lot of great content. Anyway, so this is a Dredge deck. So we're doing the classic Dredge thing of putting these creatures, Stinkweed Imp, Golgari Grave-Troll and Golgari Thug, into our graveyard and then drawing cards. We replace our draw with the Dredge, which then puts cards from top of our library into the graveyard equal to their Dredge value. So we dredge this for 6 and we flip a load of cards in. So we're trying to put things like Narcomoebas, Ichorids, Poxwalkers, that sort of stuff into the graveyard. And then we cast spells from our graveyard like the Cabal Therapy or Dread Returns, as well as the Otherworldly Gaze, which is also part of our package of enablers. So we have breakthroughs, Otherworldly Gazes, and careful studies. The idea is that we try and put a bunch of cards in the graveyard and draw some cards and mill ourselves over. And then once we get Satoru into play, which we can do either just by casting it or by dread returning it, every time a creature comes in, we get to draw a card. And if we're drawing a card, we're dredging. So we can cast this Cabal Therapy and keep dredging. So the idea is that we dredge out our whole deck and then just dread return the Thassa's Oracle. So we're kind of a Thassa's Oracle combo deck that was a little bit unexpected, I suppose, as a direction for Dredge. Like, it's always been a thing that has been sort of on the peripheries, but I think Satoru is an interesting thing that lets us just dig super deep. And Brainstorm is another card that's pretty good for digging deep too. Mafuz Van Gogh, who built this deck, they are a big fan of like the blue Dredge deck with fetch lands and stuff. I do like how the fetch land, well, the small amount of fetch lands we have is reasonable for making like a Brainstorm or something a little bit more powerful as well. And we can hold up some lands here and there. We've got some Underground Seas. I'm surprised not to see the Surveil land, but I suppose it might be a bit slow for what we're trying to do because we are going to be just trying to combo people pretty quickly with the looks of this one. We have a Cephalid Coliseum in here, which can let us dredge 3 more times, as well as discard some cards from our hand, so pretty good here. Some of the numbers look really interesting to me, like 2 Bridge from Belows. That used to be like the main thing that you won with Dredge. Only the one Ichorid, which I've found to be like one of the better things to get back and just lets you keep going. So we've kind of got less on that and we're more about casting spells from the graveyard and trying to get some draws with Satoru. So yeah, that's the main deck. We're going to be the aggressor in every game 1 pretty much. Sideboard wise, we have some tools that I'm kind of surprised to see actually. I think Surgical Extraction, I was expecting to see Leyline in the Void here. I think Leyline is very well positioned right now. But I suppose if we can dig with a bunch of stuff, maybe this is quite useful. We've got a bounce spell for opposing ley lines. We've got a generic bounce spell for creatures or ley lines, or if we don't know what our opponent has. We've got another way of bouncing multiple enchantments, so more ley line hate. We've got some Force of Wills for decks that are going to go underneath us, like Storm and that sort of jazz, as well as these Grease that we can disrupt our opponent. I'm not going to be an expert at sideboarding them with this one because until today, or earlier today, I hadn't even seen this particular deck list. So we'll see how we go, but I used to play a fair bit of Dredge once upon a time. Well, things are definitely different these days. They're not cracking LEDs anymore. Alright, so that's pretty much the deck list. Not much more to say about this one. Let's just see how it plays. So remember to like and subscribe, and when you're done, by all means, check out Mafuz Van Gogh's link in the description. Don't forget that. They do make some incredible Dredge content. Alright, let's jam. So our opener here is kind of a weird one. We could just draw and discard a Golgari Grave-Troll on turn 1 and then play the Coliseum and cast a Brainstorm or a Breakthrough. So I think that's probably fine. Keep that and we can get a Dredger into the graveyard on turn 1. Like, we're not a Lion's Eye Diamond sort of deck, so we're not trying to go super fast. Although our opponent is mulling to 4, so they're probably going to be going very fast in this game. So we might be getting a whole new hand off of something like an Echo of Eons here. Just a Volcanic. Right, I think we just go to the end step, discard this Golgari Grave-Troll, and then we can start getting to work. There's the Wasteland, so we get 1 activation with our Cephalid Coliseum, so we have to be pretty careful how we want to use this. Right, so we can dredge our Grave-Troll. We're going to put our graveyard up here because it's going to get big and be important. Otherworldly Gaze, Cephalid Coliseum. I think we're just going to discard the Grave-Troll again. No, we don't want to expose our Cephalid Coliseum here. We don't have other dredges. May as well just put this Grave-Troll away. Seeking the Beast. Okay, our opponent could be a combo deck still. But Wasteland and Questing Druid. Why do they mulligan so deep? Did they just get really unfortunate? I'll certainly take it. Alright, let's see what they saw the beast. Yeah, I think we're just looking at blue-red Delver, really. They do splash like one tropical island usually to cast the backside of this. But basically it is just a blue-red deck. Okay, so we're going to have our Grave-Troll pop out into our hand and mill us some cards here. A Cabal Therapy. Another Grave-Troll is interesting here. Do I think we're actually going to resolve anything that we play? Now, if we try and Brainstorm here, is that even going to work? Should we just be discarding this Grave-Troll? I guess it doesn't matter because we already have a Dredge there. So we can just play this one. And then we can do a Brainstorm around what our opponent does. Breakthrough does see more things. I think we can afford to take this one slow. If we do this on our own turn, then we get to do a little bit more. Alright. Add a blue mana. Let's try a Brainstorm. So our opponent can float a mana, bounce this to Daze, and then replay it to get the mana if that's one of the things they've been trying to do here. A bit more going resource-wise for them. They might be stuck on land. Yeah. But because we already have the Grave-Troll, we may as well have gone for that. It does mean that if we don't hit a Dredger on this particular Dredge, then we could end up setting ourselves back a little bit. But at some point, we're going to find an Narcomoeba or an Ichorid, and then we're away. We do still have the Thug, which is fine. So what do we have here? Just a whole bunch of nothing, really. Like, we got loads of stuff. We just haven't got the initial kernel of starting things off. Which is why I kind of am a little skeptical about not having Ichorids in a high number. Because you do need something to begin the whole chain with. Now, fortunate for us, our opponent, we're like 5 turns in and nothing's happening. But against a lot of decks, this hand would have just not gone anywhere. Just still nothing, I guess. Wild. You see anything from our opponent in the end step? Yeah, sure. Ball my face. So they might be trying to fill up their graveyard for Murktide reasons. Wasteland, yep, I understand. We're not getting another land. Well, we're not going to be drawing any more cards anyway. We're just going to be dredging over. So we've gone through half our library, so we are odds on to hit a Narcomoeba this time around. We have an Ichorid though. So next turn, we get the Ichorid back. And that's going to be some pretty big game, I would hope. Because we get to get all the Poxwalkers back and do all that. We haven't got a Satoru yet, have we? A Channeler. Let's remove a Thug. And then we get to dredge on the Grave-Troll. Aha! We found the Narcomoebas. Right, so we will Cabal Therapy, tagging our opponent. We'll sacrifice this Narcomoeba. We have some Poxwalker triggers. Which is our only Cabal Therapy. It is. Okay. Do we name Daze or Force of Will here? Like, they're both kind of the same for us. So I think we're going to name Daze. Right, they're forcing this pitching a Daze. Okay. Oh no, we've got another Cabal Therapy over there, right? 2 Dread returns. This Satoru. Like, we can just fire this again. This is kind of what the Poxwalkers enables at this point. So this will dredge a Grave-Troll here. Which will find a Narcomoeba. Which will then dredge. We have to be careful about numbers here, aren't we? So if we dredge... Do we dredge here? That'll put us to 6 cards in library. Is Poxwalkers a May. Return it to your hand. So this will draw us 4 cards. And it'll be 5th on the Oracle. So then we Cabal Therapy, targeting our opponent. Sacrificing this. We go for Daze here. A Murktide region. Okay, so they have nothing. So if we sacrifice... So we return this Thassa's Oracle. We sacrifice this. We'll draw 1 card, 2 cards, 3 cards. Then we'll draw 4 cards. And we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think this works. Let's see how good my maths is. Satoru is a thing you have to trigger. But it only triggers off of non-token creatures. So we just draw a regular card here. Put this on the bottom. We draw our regular card. And we Thassa's Oracle. And we win the game off the Thassa's Oracle. Well, our opponent's enjoying the spice over there, so our opponent's going to have Grafdigger's Cage, which is a thing we pretty much don't beat if they have it. They will also have counter spells, which is something that we may struggle with as well. But we're probably just going to be like discarding. Surgical could also be an issue for us. So there's a lot of stuff that can get us here. I think we want some amount of things. Like, I think Grief is very good for the counter spells. I think Chain of Vapor is very good for the cage. Are we supposed to play anything more than that? So Stern Dismissal is creature enchantment. Kiora's Dismissal is just enchantments. So it's basically just these, and I don't think we want Force of Wills. So how are we supposed to sideboard is not the easiest question in the world, is it? I think we're going to be trimming some blue cards, because we want to keep our black card count high for the griefs. The Breakthrough is kind of one of the all-in things. Could maybe result in a Graveyard Wipe, so maybe we don't need that. I don't think we need Lotus Petals for a matchup like this. We don't need to go super fast. Although it is one of our mana sources. We'll see if that comes back to bite us. I think in this sort of build, we do need to keep in like all the Dread Return type package. Which means we're probably like trimming on a Thug. And then we kind of can't really trim these enablers. We're probably just going to try and go to draw discard at the start. I think it's probably the Breakthrough, because Breakthrough is a harder way to enable things other than these. Is that true? Breakthrough does draw us a lot of cards, but it kind of is lights out. Maybe I like that over another Otherworldly Gaze. Let's try this. Okay, so we're just going to draw and discard on turn 1 and just put this Grave-Troll in the bin. Just take the free, uncounterable way in a matchup that's going to be relatively slow. We have 2 answers in our deck that we can dig for a cage, but we only get that out of play for a turn, which isn't the best. Right, no Leyline to start off with. Basic item from our opponent, and a Delver. Sure. So the temptation here is to play your land and do the thing, but that is not how I want to play this game. I think we are better off just putting this in, just making sure it's in for free. Like if we play this and it gets days or something, we're doing nothing, and our opponent's beating us down over time. Take the free discard. Let's pop our Graveyard up here. What's our opponent on over there? They did not find an instant or sorcery for their Delver. Misty Rainforest. Another Delver. Okay. They got a cantrip to set up these Delvers for next turn. That'd be pretty strong. And get a good clock going. Surgical Extraction. Sure. So again, I think we're just going to be discarding our Stinkweed Imp end step. Our Graveyard is very bare. At least we're only taking 1 this turn. But our opponent hasn't done a cantrip, so they might not flip their Delvers next turn. So we might only take 2 next turn. If we only take 2 next turn, I think we'll be okay. Like we have lots of enablers if this Stinkweed Imp doesn't work, but we may as well put this in and then just start casting Careful Studies. A Brainstorm. Alright, so the Delvers are going to flip. So we're going to take 6 down to 13. Get rid of this Stinkweed Imp. So next turn we can try and cast a Careful Study after dredging Stinkweed Imp. And we do it off of basic island as well, which is really handy. A Ponder. Sure. So they can look for some more answers to what we're trying to lay down over here. That is a Dragon's Rage Channeler. And a Ponder. Yep. They're certainly assembling the boys. So we're going to take 6 down to 13. Next turn we can take 9 down to 4. So that's a Lightning Bolt and our fetch land away from death. But whichever land we play, it's going to hurt us 1. So we may as well just play the island because we're likely to tap this twice. So it will save us 1 life over the course of 2 turns. But we got to find something, and we got to find it soon. They just got another piece of Graveyard Hate for this, and we're just doomed. It's not good. It's certainly not good. And we don't have any sort of Lion's Eye Diamond that we could draw and like explode out with something good. We're kind of just on the slow boat here. So I imagine we're going to game 3 in a turn or 2. Play this, crack this. If the last card in their hand is a counter spell, then we got nothing. Otherworldly Gaze does see more cards, but this allows us to put more stuff away. I guess we do those 2. Maybe we're supposed to play the Gaze there just to see 1 additional card. So we're probably going to Otherworldly Gaze in our upkeep. And see if we can put this Ichorid into play. Alright, we're only taking 1 from this channeler. That's good. I'll take that. Alright, that wasteland isn't the issue here. This looks like Big Daddy Mercs. Which certainly is an issue. Like, we can play a Narcomoeba, but it won't save us. We need to have a big turn. Alright, our opponent's got no cards in hand, so they are shields down on this turn. So in our upkeep, we will cast this Otherworldly Gaze. Yes, let's put all 3 of these into the graveyard. Do we need an Ichorid in play? I think we probably do need an Ichorid in play. Do we need that more than a Poxwalkers? I think so. And we dredge this Thug. What did we hit? Nothing much. So the plan here is we Cabal Therapy ourselves, sacrificing the Ichorid, get a bridge trigger. Not that this is going to do anything, but we need to name this Golgari Thug. We play out the Cephalid Coliseum. We cast this Careful Study. We dredge this Golgari Thug and see if we can pull it out. Okay, we had to draw a regular card there. We are very dead. So maybe we don't want the bounce spell. What if we try and play a couple of forces instead? And that's a little bit more flexible. We could try having like lots of forces. I'm not sure we can really fit all of those in. But I think having 2 forces is probably better. I guess maybe we... No, I don't think we take a breakthrough here. We've got 8 discard effect. That's probably enough. Okay, I can keep this one. So we're going to get an island to begin the game with. So we have some options here about when we cast the Otherworldly Gaze. I believe the correct time to do it is in our opponent's upkeep, because that way we get around Force of Negation, but we're doing it before days. Right, we'll get ourselves a little jellyfish friend. It's an illusion, but that's a jellyfish. It should be called an illusion jellyfish, not an illusion. But I digress. So we have a Poxwalkers that we can bring back next turn if we want to by casting the Otherworldly Gaze, which is reasonable. And we're drawing a Careful Study, which is quite nice. There is a Ponder. So we could Cabal Therapy first, which I quite like. Force of Negation, pitching Murktide Regent. Understood. Right, let's go for a Careful Study. Got a Counter Spell as well. They do not. I think we'll pitch, obviously, this one. And I like having extra mana. Obviously, I like the Careful Study as well, so it's probably the Narcomoeba that goes here. We didn't get to do anything else apart from peck for 1. So at some point, we can dredge a black creature and then fire off this Grief. Nothing from our opponent, hey? So we'll dredge this first, and then we'll think about flashing back the Otherworldly Gaze, because we might get additional Poxwalkers. And if they try and get rid of our Poxwalkers, we can get it back in response. Or if they try and Surgical us here, we can let this go. And red. What is this? Oh, they're seeking the beast. I think that's acceptable for us. Oh, they found a Surgical, though. I'm going to fire this off on the Grave-Troll. We do wait for it to resolve, and then we... Otherworldly Gaze. Sure, you can have pretty good Seek the Beast, that one. Alright, then we'll flash this back. That'll get us our Poxwalkers. And maybe we can surveil a dredge creature in for our draw step. Into graveyard. Into graveyard. On top of library. We did not get there with that. We do have this Otherworldly Gaze. I think it's worth firing this off. Are we supposed to Cabal Therapy first? No, I think we fire this one off first. In case we hit another Poxwalker. We did hit another Poxwalker. We're not drawing this next turn, so we may as well put it into the graveyard. Okay, so then we Cabal Therapy, targeting our opponent. We'll sacrifice this Poxwalker, which brings back 2 Poxwalkers. The wheels continue to spin. We have to work out what the correct name is here. Like, they're not counterspelling our stuff, so I think we just got to be worried about a threat, like Murktide Regent here. Alright, they had a Force of Will, a bunch of other stuff. Pop this down here so I can see all their things they have got going on. Get attacked for 1. So next turn I think we are doing Otherworldly Gaze in our upkeep, so that we have some potential Ichorid action. That's an idea anyway. We'll see what our opponent does. They might wasteland our Underground Sea here. Just a Tarn. Are we going to see questing Druid into Dragon's Race Channeler here? They've drawn a blue card. That's not too bad either. There it goes. See the Channeler as well? Nope, the Ponder. That was under their Seek the Beast from last time. So we have a pretty good turn potentially where we get to Otherworldly Gaze, then maybe we get to Grief, and then Careful Study. Just a lot of stuff. Right, before they draw the card from this, I will cast the Otherworldly Gaze as well. Let's flash this one back. This does mean less chance of getting some Poxwalkers back this turn, but we already have half of the Poxwalkers in our deck. So we're trying to get the Ichorid back this time. Or maybe find... actually, we can't find a better Dredger because they took out all our trolls. Alright, Force of Will, pitching another Force of Will. Alright. So we have perfect information in the hand, although this board was about to resolve. So we're going to say no to the Ichorid. We're going to dredge this Stinkweed Imp. So our opponent could have Daze. We didn't hit... Oh, we got Stinkweed Imp there. So we could do this Grief first to make sure that we don't get hit by anything like a Daze. I think that's acceptable. Because we already have a Stinkweed Imp that we can dredge, and it's going to get discarded off of our Careful Study. I think the Brainstorm is scarier than anything else here. So that goes away. We have no bridges, but that's fine. Cast ourselves this Careful Study. We'll dredge this Stinkweed Imp. Did not find another one. Okay. Any bridges? No bridges. We have a Dread Return that can't really Dread Return anything interesting. So we attack with everything here. We are the aggro. This has got Death Touch. We're not going to lose any bridges if they block here. And then we do have a Cabal Therapy, so we can just get back both of our Poxwalkers and take out their Dragon's Rage Channeler. It's Cabal Therapy, sacrificing one of our Poxwalkers. Oh look, it comes back again. We'll name Dragon's Rage Channeler. Our opponent's given us the GGs already. Do they know the top card of their library? I think they must do, actually. Alright. Yeah, took a while, but we did grind our way there in the end. As you can see, this is a lot less explosive than some of the other ones, although we did have that really explosive game in game 1. Alright, let's go to round 2. I don't think we can keep an opener like this. We have to mulligan. Alright, this is the sort of opener we can keep. So we probably bin off... I'm tempted to bin off the Therapy here and just have as many blue spells as we can ram through. Otawara Chrome Mox. Is this going to be like the dual deck, perhaps? Echo, Lotus Petal, Days Undoing. So we have a new hand. I think I'd rather have the Coliseum in case we get wheeled again. Let's Careful Study. A Force of Will. So our opponent might be on like Hull Breacher Stompy type thing. Hard to say. They're definitely trying to make draw 7s happen. Right, I wouldn't mind having some lines like diamonds of our very own. A Narset. Well, that's pretty bad for this old breakthrough, isn't it? A Golgari Thug. So one of the issues we have here... I'm just trying to work out we play an Underground Sea or another Coliseum. I think it's just an Underground Sea here. And we're going to do this, which draws us 0 cards, but puts a Thug into our graveyard. And I'll keep this Cephalid Coliseum. Oh, sorry, I have to choose which ones I'm discarding. So we discard all of these. And we'll keep the Cephalid Coliseum. So now we at least have a graveyard thing, but doing these whole draw 7, shuffle your graveyard in is going to be borderline impossible for us to beat. And they've got an Ezra Saga, which might have some graveyard hate too. They've got a Force of Will sat over there as well. Okay, Mox. Another Narset. This is going to be on the tough side, I have to say. Alright, let's dredge the Thug. Well, well, well. We hit 3 Narcomoebas. That's not nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, I did think about cracking this Cephalid Coliseum, but the problem is it just discards our hand. It doesn't actually put it into play. So let's just make 4 1/1s. It's a thing that we can do. So they're going to make a big guy, and they're going to get a piece of graveyard hate. And then we're going to have a rough time of it. Okay, I don't have graveyard hate main deck. That's something. What fresh hell is this? They've already got Days Undoing. Got to use a Spell Bomb. Sure. Days Undoing. Dread Return. Probably not the one we're after. Alright, we'll go to attacks. We'll attack Narset for 1. I don't think we're attacking with anything else, are we? We can't pop this. So if they block... If we block with Golgari Thug, it sees itself and puts itself on top of our library. But I'm hoping our opponent doesn't know that and doesn't attack us. Another Saga. But we can just block with an Narcomoeba and then next turn block with a Thug, and that actually serves us quite well. We probably should have attacked with one other Narcomoeba just to get 1 point of damage in. I was a little bit loose. But I didn't want him to be able to bounce a Narcomoeba so we couldn't block with it. Oh look, it's a Narset. I remember you. What is it this time? A Lotus Petal, okay. Careful study. I guess we go to attacks. Attack all creatures at Narset, please. And hope they can't make enough to kill us next turn. Right, so now we get to cast a Careful Study. So their guy is 10-10 now. 10, 11, 12, 13. Not quite lethal, but they got 5 cards in hand. They get to make a construct. Yeah, this feels pretty miserable. But like our opponent's kind of done their thing like several times. And they still haven't won the game. I'm not personally a fan of these sorts of decks. Echo of Eons. Alright, that's lethal. And they just make a massive guy. Sure, we can get out of this game. What a miserable game it was too. Okay. So I think we're going to want to pick apart key things in our opponent's hand. And we're probably going to want some amount of counter magic, I think, on this one. Are we going to want any bounce spells? What do we think our opponent could be playing? Now, there's definitely a chance our opponent has ley lines. I think we have to have some number of chains, which means we don't get to board in these. So we could... I think having the Grief is probably... Actually, is that true? I think the Forces are better than the Griefs, especially if they're going to be giving us fresh 7s. Okay, I would like to get rid of a couple of Brainstorms. I think the Lotus Petal looks okay in this matchup. We could do the classic trim a Thug, trim an Otherworldly Gaze, trim a couple of Breakthrough, something like this. No, it's probably a Poxwalker actually, isn't it, rather than this other Breakthrough. Although I think I prefer the Gaze to the Breakthrough just because it sets us up, doesn't it? Alright, we'll try this. We can Cabal Therapy ourselves. I don't like this one that much. Alright, I like this one a little bit more. Do we want all these thugs? Probably not. Send one of them away. Oh, we have uses for additional mana. I think we're inclined to fire this off now, just in case we find like Poxwalkers and stuff like that. Our Force of Will is interesting. We're definitely putting this guy into the graveyard. This Satoru, though, is pretty tempting. I think we're just putting it all into the graveyard. Let's see what our opponent does. I suspect our opponent is incredibly heavily favoured in this matchup. They're just going to have all the things to like reset our graveyard over and over again. That's what their deck does. And we need several turns to get our graveyard to do its thing. Okay. This is pretty good. So we'll crack this. Go and get ourselves this Underground Sea. Flashback this Otherworldly Gaze. Get this Poxwalker back. Well, these are all pretty stone cold bangers here, aren't they? Put this into our graveyard. Put this on top of my library. This on top of my library. Then I will Cabal Therapy our opponent. Sacrificing Poxwalkers. What are we supposed to find here? Days Undoing. That's something they wouldn't have cast there. So we got rid of 2 Days Undoing. And then we'll Cabal Therapy again. Sacrificing the Poxwalkers. And then we'll name Hull Breacher. I think that's better than anything else at this point. Is that true? We want our thing to resolve, our Careful Study. But they're going to be able to play the Hull Breacher next turn anyway. I think we just name Hull Breacher here. And we pass. Yeah, so we basically deduced that if they had an Echo of Eons, they could have spun it then. So what would they not cast there? And it was a Days Undoing, which is something that's worth keeping a hand for against us, for sure. Oh, wow, they're imprinting this, or is this just as an artifact? Oh, they are imprinting. Alright, so we get to kind of have our Wicked Way this turn. We know the top card of our library is a Careful Study. That is probably better than dredging this Stinkweed Imp this turn. I think it is. So we know there's a Careful Study on top. So a Cephalid Coliseum. So we don't dredge. Or maybe we are just dredging this. This is 2 dredges instead of 1. Just trying to work out. If we take this Cephalid Coliseum, we then get to draw. So we do this and then we dredge 1. And we'll discard a Troll and an Imp. We'll yield to this. Put it into play. Play this Coliseum that we put on top. I would like to draw 3 cards, please. Alright, this should be some amount of pod racing. Golgari Grave-Troll, Golgari Grave-Troll, Golgari Grave-Troll. We'll discard some Grave-Trolls. Get this guy. We got Satoru in there. We do. Have we got... okay, we got Cabal Therapy as well. Yeah, so this should be game over, I think. So we get this back, pitching this guy, this guy, this guy. All these things happen. We get this guy. He draws a card. We'll dredge. Grave-Troll. Then we will Cabal Therapy, targeting our... I guess we target ourselves. Alright, we're definitely doing the thing here. So this will dredge this Grave-Troll. I don't think we want these. We'll name Grave-Troll. So we have 7 cards left in our library. So if we Dread Return this Thassa's Oracle and stack it right, we can just dredge that Golgari Grave-Troll and win the game. So if we just sack these 3. So we put this on the bottom. So Satoru triggers, we dredge this Grave-Troll, Thassa's Oracle comes in, sees the 1 card on top of our library, and we win the game. That was a pretty awesome turn. I think I like how I've sideboarded here. Like, the Force of Wills are better than the Griefs. Do we want to have bounce spells beyond our Chain of Vapors? I don't think so. We're just going like that. Alright, that was cool. What does this hand do? We have an Otherworldly Gaze into another Otherworldly Gaze. We're going to need to find a way to bin these off, but the Cephalid Coliseum is that way. I think this is keepable. We can also just draw discard this Stinkweed Imp if we really want to. But we'll see what our opponent's up to. Cabal Therapy. Is that more important to me than discarding this? Maybe it is. Let's crack this. Because if we start putting stuff in the graveyard and they just get us with the thing, that's going to suck. So let's get a force our opponent's hand. Let's try Day's Undoing. Alright, we've got another reader here. Devastation Tide. Return all non-land permanents there in his hand and you can miracle it. Understood. There's an Otawara. So I think we are casting this Otherworldly Gaze right now. So we definitely want this Poxwalkers into the graveyard. The other 2 cards are pretty good though. So I think we put this on top of the library and then the Careful Study. So we can Poxwalkers this turn. Oh no, we can't. We haven't got a creature we're talking about. We can Poxwalkers next turn. Okay. So this Karn the Great Creator is probably going to have a Tormod's Crypt. So we have to see what timings they have on that. But we have 2 cards to rebuild on top. There's the Karn. Here comes the Tormod's Crypt. You always want Tormod's Crypt in your Karn sideboard. Although if they're a pretty combo, they might not have something. Okay, so there's the Crypt. There it is. Alright, they also have a draw 7. Okay. What does our hand do? Maybe we're going to be beating down with Satoru. Just as a regular guy. Should be very difficult for our opponent to lose this matchup overall. Their deck is just naturally designed to prey upon people like us. Well, it's not designed to. It's designed to do this thing where you spin and make treasures and do all that sort of jazz. But just by functioning normally, our opponent's deck does pretty ridiculous work against us. So black and blue. Let's have... We get Satoru this turn. And then next turn we play the Poxwalkers because it has Death Touch. And that's pretty handy. I think we'll play out Cephalid Coliseum. Yeah, so we can put a Poxwalkers in front of an Urza Saga token. How much mana does our opponent have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they can make a token and get the Lattice if they have... Okay, they've played the land from hand, so they should be able to just Lattice lock us out of this game. Not how I was expecting to lose this one, but it's certainly going to be good enough. Okay, they just plussed on the Karn. So that gives us a turn to put this Poxwalkers into play. Otherworldly Gaze, you say? Alright, let's get this Poxwalkers down. Is that true? We're not going to fill our graveyard. Actually, that's not entirely true. We could hit a Narcomoeba and a Dredger. Force of Will, Flooded Strand. I think the timer's gone for these things. So we could fire this again, or we could play this Poxwalkers so we're more likely to be able to beat a Karn. Because Death Touch is useful. I suspect our opponent can just make 2 tokens and we'll struggle from that point. So they make token here, then they make another token, then Karn makes Lattice. Okay, sure. Hull Breacher. They're going to make a very big creature. They could have the key that makes them unblockable, but they haven't really shown anything that's good with key, so I don't think they've got that. I think they're just happy to make some very, very beefy construct gentlemen. Alright, what fresh head is this from this Urza Saga? An LED. A Day's Undoing. That's some big constructs over there. When, okay, the game's caught up even. A Narcomoeba. Well, we're casting it. Then we have to hold back our Poxwalkers on blocks here. But our opponent can lattice lock us pretty easily. I don't think we're going to get another big turn like we had in game 2. Yep, just keep making some big guys. You've made some even bigger guys. Sure. I just want to see how big they can make them. Sure, you carry on, opponent. They're having fun. I'm not going to... Okay, so now they're going to go and get the lattice. Sky Sovereign. Surprised they don't have something like a ballista here. They're going to kill the Satoru. Okay. I feel we could have been dead last turn. Our opponent obviously just is showboating and doing the fun thing, and we're gonna let them have the pleasure, because I imagine they don't get to do it very often with this deck. So, all right, there you go. They're smashing us for a bunch. Yep, matchup from hell. I think our chance of winning this matchup overall on the draw. If we lose a die roll, I think we're somewhere in the region of maybe 15% to win this match overall. So, not ideal. Let's go to round 3. We're on the play. Yeah, Careful Study is where I want to be. We can also lead off on a basic. It's a pretty good one to counter spell as a general rule. Okay, Golgari Grave-Troll and Stinkweed Imp. Off you go. Next turn, we get to put a lot of cards into our graveyard. Although, you never know, our opponent might be a deck that's not going to give us a turn 2. There's a fair bit of Storm around at the moment, which is not a surprise given it won back-to-back Legacy Challenges the other day. Alright, a Delver matchup. We've seen how this goes most of the time, so I'm pretty happy about this one. Grave-Troll, get in my hand. Are we just doing a Cephalid Coliseum right now? It's uncounterable. I think that makes way more sense. Let's go big. Grave-Troll, Stinkweed Imp, and a Thug, I guess. We'll get rid of this Troll, and this Imp. What did we find? Nothing that pops out the graveyard. So another turn, we must wait. There are some Otherworldly Gaze in there, so we can just cast them, and just the act of casting them will put Poxwalkers into our hand. So that's probably what I'm going to into play. So that's probably what I'm going to do next turn. After we dredge, especially if we don't hit any creatures, we can just do that. Get a... How many Poxwalkers we have? 2 Poxwalkers back. We can Cabal Therapy our opponent's hand. Get some... Have we got any bridges? No bridges. Okay. But we've still got 6 more cards to put into our graveyard. This matchup should be very hard for our opponent game 1. Game 2 and 3, they do get some real interaction though. Let's yield to this. Alright, there's a breakthrough as well. That's what we want to see. So we're better off casting Otherworldly Gaze than we are just sacrificing this Narcomoeba, because we want to have 3 creatures in play. So we can bring back the Satoru. Play this. Don't stifle me. Getting under an island here. So let's cast this Otherworldly Gaze. Let's yield to these Poxwalker triggers. Then we get to strip our opponent's hand, and then dread return the Satoru, dredge a bit more, and hopefully that's enough. Put this into our graveyard. Like, drawing these wouldn't be bad, but we don't need to do any of that anymore. Let's Cabal Therapy our opponent, sacrificing a Poxwalker. We're netting creatures now because of the bridge from below. Did I miss playing a land this turn? I think that could be costly here. And Orcish Bowmasters. Is it going to ping itself and remove our bridges? This game is no longer about bridges, so I'm a-okay with that. So it can ping itself or the channeler and remove our bridge from below, which will stop us getting a token. I think did we play a land? No, we did play a land, and then we flash back the thing, right? Yeah. No, we have played a land. Can we name Force here? Days. Okay. Cannot pay. I think we still flash back this other one, just to check that the coast is clear before we do a dread return. Very much doing the hokey cokey with the Poxwalkers. Take a look. Nothing that does anything over there. Excellent. So we should be able to close this one out, I think. Get this Satoru. So we'll sacrifice these 3 creatures. 2 of them immediately come back. And if we find a Narcomoeba or a Cabal Therapy off of this dredge, then we just get to carry on going. A dread return for Thassa's Oracle. That does win us the game, right? We sacrifice 2 Poxwalkers for it. And we dredge 12 cards. Yeah, I think that's fine, right? We dredge 12 cards. of those two, then we can dredge another 5. Yeah, we can definitely dredge our whole library here. We might have to do some maths in a second. So the first one, we dredge 6. Second one, we dredge 4. And then we have 1, 2, 3. Oh, have I messed this one up? Have I messed this one up? Oh, we have messed this one up, I think. We've got another Narcomoeba in the deck. So if we dredge this, then we draw a card off of the... no, we draw a card off of the Thassa Oracle. We win the game with it on the stack. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, no, we found the other Narcomoeba. We did have another Narcomoeba. We don't have to use it, right? Yes, okay. So this comes into play, and we stack the draw trigger underneath the win the game trigger. All right, we are getting there. So this goes on the bottom, and the Thassa Oracle trigger resolves first. Our death on the stack, their death on the stack on top of it. Exciting times. So, we decide Griefs were probably better. And we wanted a couple of chains, didn't we? I think. Something along these lines. Brainstorm is an easy one to get rid of. Well, did we have the forces, actually, against Surgicals? They're just more flexible, aren't they, than the Griefs? If we get stuck with a bunch of blue cards. We can trim one of these. We trim a Poxwalkers and a Thug. Oh, we don't need this Lotus Petal, I don't believe. Let's try it like this. All right, we're definitely showing off the combo side where we can just go, oh, we just get to win the game now, which is nice. All right, this is a bit of a weird hand. We're kind of relying on this Otherworldly Gaze to do quite a bit of work here. I think we can do a little bit better. Is that greedy? Well, we've done it now. All right, this is a similar hand, but better. So we'll keep this. What do we not want in our opener? Probably a Dread Return. It's like either a Dread Return or a Bridge here. And we're probably shuffling it away anyway. So I think we do Otherworldly Gaze on our opponent's turn as our first thing to play around Force of Negation. There is a Delver. There is a Bauble. They're going to use this on their own Delver to try and flip it. So we'll crack this. We could have a Cabal Therapy on our first turn. But I think we just want to Otherworldly Gaze and get our ball rolling. Let's see what they do with this Bauble. Which way are they going to stack these? I'd like to draw the card. So the first card they're drawing is not a counter spell. So I think we'll let the Delver see what it flips first. Alright. It is also not a counter spell. Unless there's just a great amount of bait going on here. So our opponent has a Bowmasters, which is annoying against our Careful Study, but the game's not going to come down to a couple of points of damage here and there. Let's try and Surveil. We get 2 stabs at this because we've got the second land in hand. Okay, I don't really want any of these. Also don't really care about having them in our graveyard. That was a bit disappointing. A Narcomoeba. That's not the one. A Brainstorm in response. So I'm okay with this Otherworldly Gaze hitting a Force of Negation because we've already got the first half of the card. We're just trying to get the second half going, and if it gets countered, that's not an issue. We have another Draw Discard engine, and we'd rather have this go off. I don't think we can afford to get Black Mana against Wasteland if we need to keep flashing these back, and it's going to be a grindy matchup. So we could cast this Careful Study around a Daze, or we could cast this Otherworldly Gaze. I think playing around Daze makes more sense here, now I think about it. This requires a Force type card. I guess they could have double Daze. Okay, so we get to throw away these 2 cards. And we can Otherworldly Gaze in our upkeep if we want to, but I think we're better off just firing off this Cephalid Coliseum. What are you going to flip to, Little Delver of Secrets? A Lightning Bolt. So they can bolt their own Delver to get rid of our bridge. But as I've seen, the bridges aren't actually that integral to our plan. We're only running 2 of them, so it's definitely a new breed of dredge deck that we're playing. Okay, they've got a Channeler. Let's dredge this Stinkweed Imp and then see what the ground looks like there. Whether we're going to be doing Coliseum or not. There is a Grave-Troll in there. And a Thug. Let's go deep on drawing cards with this Cephalid Coliseum. I'm not expecting like a big thing that wipes our entire graveyard. And there's 3 different dredges in there. So Surgical is not going to stop this train. If their hand is 3 Surgicals, then by all means you can win this game, opponent. Let's get a Troll. Let's get another Troll. Let's get Imp. And we'll discard Troll, Imp, Troll. Keep a nice mix of things. I guess we could have discarded this Cabal Therapy, actually. That would have made a little bit more sense now I think about it. We're going to get Stifle here. And Orcish Bowmasters, they're going to ping down their own creature. And get rid of our bridge. Interesting, they're valuing killing the... They're valuing having the Bowmasters in play instead of the Channeler. Not sure if I fully agree with that. But I don't know why it's in our opponent's hand. Okay, so let's Cabal Therapy our opponent. Sacrificing this. We've got Poxwalkers as well. We played around Daze here, so I think they might have a Daze, which will also take them off Force of Will for return. Okay, they have a Force of Will. We can't quite dread return yet. Of our lands. Kind of wish I'd put this other Cabal Therapy into the graveyard. Ah, well. You live and learn. There's no Ichorid in there. So for the purposes of Poxwalkers, we don't want to play our Otherworldly Gaze from the graveyard until after we've dredged, because we might hit some Poxwalkers and get some friends. Doesn't look high on the friends rate over there, does it? Right, let's crack this for a black source. Let's cast Cabal Therapy, tagging our opponent. We know they have a Force of Will in hand. So let's just say no to this one straight up. We can play a Narcomoeba just to block with in a minute as well. Bolting our face. Sure. Another Lightning Bolt. Okay, that's certainly an interesting one here. So we get a free attack in first. We're not doing any hasty shenanigans in our deck. So we'll claim our 6 points of life total. This Delver is lethal. We do have something for that though. So then we can Cabal Therapy our opponent. Do we have another Poxwalkers in here? We don't. So if we cast this, we have to try and win with Satoru. I think that's the line. They bolt our Satoru, we're not dead. We've got 3 Narcomoebas left? No, 2 Narcomoebas left. And this Cabal Therapy means we should be able to dredge our whole deck. They can Lightning Bolt our Satoru, is the thing. I think we're maybe supposed to Cabal Therapy first. Because now if we Cabal Therapy... Yeah, we've messed this one up slightly. Okay. Let's get back this Satoru. We're supposed to Cabal Therapy the Lightning Bolt out of their hands. They couldn't kill our Satoru, so we might lose this game because of that. That is unfortunately my bad. Cabal Therapy, getting rid of this Poxwalker. This is what we should have done first. We've given our opponent a chance to win this game if they bolt our Satoru right now. So we've got the draw trigger on the stack, so we should have this one. We need to find that other Narcomoeba. Or the other Pox... Oh, the other Poxwalkers. No, that's the one that's already in there, isn't it? We need to find a Poxwalker or a Narcomoeba to win this one. So we need to do 6 off of this Grave-Troll. I'm going to Lightning Bolt Satoru right now. But they let us get a draw trigger. I think is incorrect for them. Found an Narcomoeba. Yes, please. Doesn't really matter what we name because they have no cards in hand. So now we have a blocker if we want it. We can dread return if we want to. What does that actually get us? Very little. On 5, we block here. We take 2. We don't die to Lightning Bolt. Orcish Bowmasters pings this down. They attack for 3, 4, 5, 6. So Orcish Bowmasters will kill us. So we could just put a massive troll into play. But I think the easiest way to win is going to be via Thassa's Oracle. Which we can do very easily next turn. So I don't think we burn our Dread Return. So let's just hope our opponent doesn't draw exactly Orcish Bowmasters. I think that's the only thing that kills us here. They're also drawing blind. They don't know what the top card of the library is. Yeah, so we messed this turn up. But if we'd have Cabal Therapied away their Lightning Bolt, we would have been alright. We've given our opponent some wiggle room and hopefully we're not going to get punished for it. But if we do, then we deserved it. New to this particular version of Dredge, as you can quite clearly see. I suppose if we just made a really big troll, that would have also been fine. Could have brought back a Stinkweed Imp and just beat down with our Poxwalkers. Maybe we didn't need to leave ourselves dead to Bowmasters, but they don't have the Bowmasters, otherwise they would have killed our Narcomoeba first, so we should be okay. I can hardcast a... Actually, it doesn't matter. We've got these Cabal Therapies. They're not killing us. We're on 4. So we dredge this Thug and we go to 1 card left in our library. A Narcomoeba. I'll have that Narcomoeba, please. So we'll attack for 6. And then we will Cabal Therapy our opponent. And then we will Dread Return our Thassa's Oracle. It's just Force of Negation. I guess Surgical. How many Cabal Therapies do we have is the question. There is Wait, do we have no Cabal Therapy? No, there's one Cabal Therapy. Oh, there's two Cabal Therapies, actually. I've just seen another one. All right. So we should be okay. We'll name Surgical first. And if it's Force of Negation, we'll name it. Okay, it's just a Channeler. So now we've got one card left in our library. We'll Dread Return. Targeting our Thassa's Oracle. Get rid of these Poxwalkers. And then we get to win the game. We can also Surveil, just to put the last cards, but we don't need to because we have Devotion to Blue 3. Just the Ichorid left. Okay, we've got 2-0 against Delver, so we're now 2-1. Let's go to round 4. We're on the draw, so we can just draw, discard. That's fine. If we get hit by a piece of hand disruption from our opponent, that would be the punish for keeping this hand, which I hopefully haven't spoken into existence, but that's sometimes how this game goes. All right, Misty Rainforest. All right, we get to draw and discard a card. Great. We've got lots of mana to play on. Not what you expected, opponent, eh? Surveilling. They probably know that we're doing some sort of graveyard thing. A wasteland. Yep, we don't have any lands, so that seems like a fine one. So throw away. Okay, we got our Grave-Troll ready to rock and roll. So we're looking at some kind of bank control list, would be my guess. Uro is something that gets to remove our bridges, but thankfully our build doesn't require bridges to do its thing. Oh, okay. We're going big into the old Stiflenaut. Yep, I think that's a good play from our opponent there. Just put on the pressure and hope that we just sort of spin our wheels for a few turns, as Dredge can often do. That's not really the ones we wanted, is it? We don't have an additional follow-up here. Does making this Narcomoeba make sense? I think it does. Because we can Cabal Therapy ourselves to put these Poxwalkers into the graveyard. I guess the other option was just to hard cast a Poxwalker, we'd be dead next turn anyway. So let's Cabal Therapy target ourselves. Is that right? 2 Poxwalkers in? I think so. So the Doorkeeper Thrall that our opponent has in their deck is going to be a thing that can stop us from... I'm assuming they're playing white because it's usually banned. So that's going to stop us from doing our Thassa's Oracle kill sometimes, which is definitely a thing we're going to have to keep in mind. But they also have Phyrexian Dreadnought, which you can just pay 1, remove our bridges, if that's what we're working on at the time. They've definitely got some angles of attack. They're good against us. Swords to Plowshares, which I'm expecting is in our opponent's deck, can take out Poxwalkers for good. Right, we can just F6 these turns now while our opponent does their pondering and whatevers. So they're going to crack half our life total. And then next turn, we need to put a decent amount of stuff into play. Okay, we've played around the wasteland that we saw already. And they had another one. Okay, Stinkweed Imp. Let's make this dredge a good one. We got nothing. Let's go. So, Stifle Naught. The bounce spells look pretty good here. I think our opponent could have cages. And then we have to decide if we want Force of Wills or Griefs. Do you want some Stern Dismissals? Not sure we do. I think we want these Forces. Once again, the Brainstorm's coming out. I don't think we have to go fast with the Lotus Petal. This is generally going to be a slightly slower matchup, is the impression I get. And we're sort of trimming on a bunch of things. I think the last thing we trim is a Thug. And we roll in like this. We're kind of doing very similar sideboarding, but this deck that we're playing against is not a million miles away from Delver in some respects. It's trying to make a threat and protect it for a few turns and win the game that way. Well, this is not the one, is it? Let's mulligan. Okay. This hand has very, very high potential. We'll keep this. I think we've been off one of the Thugs. We start off with Basic Island. We don't want to get our Cephalid Coliseum wastelanded. We also don't want to get stifled down the line, so we need to keep that in mind when we activate it. It's Basic Island. So this has to be a force either of negation or... Oh wow, we're just in. Okay, so we'll put 2 dredges down because I believe our opponent is going to have something like Surgical Extraction. Yeah, so I'm going to say they need a force. Their deck could be one that plays Endurance though. Right, so our opponent's turn. What are we looking at? Dress Down is another thing that stops our Thassa's Oracle. We have things like Cabal Therapy which we can just fire off and make sure it's not there. So I won't fire a Cephalid Coliseum into a potential stifle. But I will fire a Breakthrough off. Do I do Breakthrough where X equals 1? No, I don't think we do. But I do need to play this to play around days. This is very much must counter territory, I believe. Unless they are playing endurances. Okay, we're getting 2 Narcomoebas out. We've got a bunch of Poxwalkers. Let's hope they don't have the surgical, not surgical, the endurance. I guess they would do it before the Narcomoebas resolve. So I guess they don't. Right, what are we naming? Right, our opponent's got some stuff going on here. We can get our Satoru back, right? We got a Dredge return. We don't have a Dredge return, actually. Let's see what they want to do about our Cabal Therapy. A Veil of Summer. Not absolutely in love with that one, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think we'll Cabal Therapy ourselves. Sacrificing a Poxwalker. This gets us some more creatures. So 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't think we fire off another one, but having a couple of zombies is pretty good. Alright. You're going to have a good turn, opponents. A Polluted Delta from our opponent. That is, in itself, not good enough to deal with what's in front of them. It also means there's no wasteland for our Cephalid Coliseum, which is pretty important. Well, it's not going to be that important. We've got a lot of damage. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I suppose us not getting the other guy there did stop us from having lethal this turn, now I think about it. I forgot about the Ichorid maths. I will take out a Stinkweed Imp, so I leave two dredges with different names in our graveyard when we do the Ichorid. That plays around Surge Extraction a little bit. Yeah, we should have made another zombie here. That was my bad. So I could fire off this Cephalid Coliseum in response. But I'm not wanting to just jam into a Stifle. We're doing pretty fine over here. Doorkeeper Thrall can jump in. Do we care about Doorkeeper Thrall? No. Is that true? If it blocks any of these, it will trade. Are we going to see some white mana? No, black mana. Okay, so they're on Bug Dreadnought. I'm mistaken. An Orcish Bowmasters. Are you going to ping down your own Bowmasters? Or are you just going to ping down our Ichorid and play a little bit of damage control? Or are you just going to die? Yep, sure. Okay, so Bug Dreadnought is a slightly different beast. I think we still want the same tools, though. I can't see how we want to do anything slightly differently at all. No exile removal does make the Poxwalkers quite tight. But I think we have to respect the things our opponent can have. Because they're an A+B, the Forcible gets a lot more value. Yeah, I like this hand quite a lot. Wouldn't mind seeing another blue card. I am a little concerned by our non-basic land in hand. Our opponent's mulligan to 5. Are we going to see a Leyline? It's possible because they're a black deck. But we didn't see it in game 2. And if that's their graveyard hate, then I think you're kind of incentivized to go. I guess because, okay, they didn't start with a Leyline play. I don't believe these sorts of decks usually run Leylines. They've got a basic island over there. So I can fire off a Careful Study before an Orcish Bowmaster comes down. Or I can fire off an Otherworldly Gaze, which we get 2 bites of. I think that's better because we've drawn this Underground Sea. So I'm going to fire off an Otherworldly Gaze in our opponent's turn to play around Force of Negation. Right, we got Brainstorm popping off. A Misty Rainforest. Got Underground Sea. We're going to see a big boy. There is quite a large boy. And a Stifle. I think I'm going to play slowly here. I don't believe our opponent's playing around Force of Will. I was correct. I believe they would Force of Will back if they had it, or Daze back. I guess they wouldn't Daze because we've got mana up. Let's see if we can Otherworldly Gaze. I would like this in the graveyard. Yeah, they're all just going in the bin here. Stinkweed Imp. Let's have some of you. I think we're incentivized to play this out in case we find some action. Although we do want our opponent's turn to play around Force of Negation, which is something we've been playing around so far. So it's something our opponent could have they don't necessarily get to do anything with. A Ponder. Polluted Delta. It's going to be a Murktide. It is, with 1 card left in hand. Well, Narcomoeba are pretty good at blocking Murktides. Stinkweed Imp is very good at blocking Murktides. Right, let's flash this back. So they can't have Force of Negation now anyway. I would very much like this into the graveyard, and then this, and then we'll put this on top of my library and we will draw that instead of dredging. This drawing 4 is pretty good. We can play around Daze by just doing it for 0. Gonna hit another dredger? We did. Right, so now I have to click on all of them. We've got some Narcomoebas coming in. Cabal Therapy our opponent with this one. Bunch of triggers on the stack. I believe our opponent could have a Daze. Just a Brainstorm. Okay, so we should be able to try and win this game, right? So we dread return Satoru here. Alright, our opponent's scooping up. They might have seen this before. But again, we're playing against these sort of play a creature, beat you down over a few turns decks. And we're having a great time. It's when we're playing against these Echo Vions, Days Undoing, that we're having a tough one. Right, let's go to the final round. We're looking for the 4-1. I don't like this opening hand. We have a Brainstorm that we can try and do some stuff with. But it feels a little bit slow. I think we're going to mulligan. Yeah, Otherworldly Gaze is where I want to be. Let's keep this. Narcomoeba goes back in the deck. We've got 2 Narcomoebas, unfortunate, but maybe we'll cast one of them. So we're going to play this and we're going to get a basic island. That allows us to play around Stifle. And we can Otherworldly Gaze on our opponent's turn, depending on what we think they're doing. Do we do it now to play around Force of Negation? I think so. Sure. I will very much have this careful study on top of our library. That seems like a good one. A Cloud Post. Okay. So we've got a few turns. This doesn't come in. We cast this careful study. And we've been off these 2 guys. Playing a Cephalid Coliseum. We have 7 cards in our graveyard, do we? That's convenient. Let's use the Petal to power this out. Dredging once. Dredging twice. And we have to discard 3 cards. We'll get rid of the 3 dredges. We get to do that next turn as well. We don't get to bring anything back just yet. But we can certainly have an Ichorid, which will then get to do a whole bunch of stuff next turn. We're quite far ahead, considering how Cloud Post decks usually take several turns to do very much. Grim Monolith. Alright, so probably mono brown Cloud Post. Thought Not Seer. Sure, you can take my Narcomoeba. It's just something that they can have on the board. It has pretty good power and toughness. Where is our Golgari Thug? We'll take that one. Dredge this Troll. Let's draw some more cards here. We've got 2 Stinkweed Imps. And a Troll. We'll discard Troll, Imp. Get ourselves a Narcomoeba. Sacrifice this guy that's going to die anyway. Many Poxwalker triggers. I don't really know what our opponent can have here. Khan, the Great Creator. Be annoying if we let them have another turn. All is dust. Okay, well we're probably winning this turn, I would imagine. Where is our Dredge return? Let's get back Satoru. So this will dredge us this Grave-Troll. Get another Narcomoeba. So we don't have the combo just yet. But this Narcomoeba will dredge us again. I think we have to dredge Stinkweed Imp. Is that right? If we dredge this Troll, we can just take normal draws, I guess, can't we? So we say yes to this. How many Narcomoebas have we gone through? 1, 2, 3, and there's 1 in exile. So say yes to this. And then from this, we will dredge the Thug. So our library is empty. Oh no, that doesn't work, does it? Because the Poxwalkers come back and we don't get a choice in the matter. Oh, we just punted this one, haven't we? Whoops. I was going to cast this on this. Oh no, we don't have to use our Poxwalkers, do we? We can use these. Alright, we did find the way around it. Oof. A brief moment of panic set in there. Shall we just stack the triggers the way we want them so we just win the game? So this goes on the bottom. Thassa's Oracle resolves first. We win the game. Okay, mono brown. So what sort of hate are they likely to have? This could be a leyline matchup. They're going to have Khan as a thing we need to worry about as well. So I'm kind of thinking something along these lines. I don't think I'm ready for these just yet. We'll wait and see. Once again, we're getting rid of these Brainstorms. Do we need the Lotus Petals in this matchup? I think our opponent is going to be trying to do their thing fast, but it's just not a very fast thing that they're trying to do. I like having the turbocharged stuff like Breakthrough here. I think we do still want the bridges. We can just kind of go hard there. Let's get rid of one of those. Probably have to get rid of this and this if we want these things in. And then we've got to find one more cut. It's Poxwalkers is what we've normally been boarding out, so let's try that. I think the Griefs are more for combo decks. Okay. Otherworldly Gaze into Breakthrough. That's a very powerful start if we can have it off. We'll keep. If our opponent's got a leyline and they mull to it, then we can do a Breakthrough where X equals 1 and try and find some bounce spell, but that's not going to be great. Okay, they do have the leylines. Alright, Otherworldly Gaze, you've got to surveil pretty hard. We don't need to do it right now. I guess we'll pop out our Exile Zone and our Graveyard. That's taking up a lot of the thing, isn't it? Okay. We'll pop neither of them out for now. Right, the Vesuva, they're just making manas. Grim Monolith. No, Walking Ballista X equals 1. This can die whenever and take out our bridges if we ever get to that stage. Right, let's cast another Otherworldly Gaze. We can't afford to have these. We just need to dig towards the... Oh dear. I don't think I'm playing out this Breakthrough where X equals 1. I think we're just going to play out a Narcomoeba. It's not very exciting. But maybe we can get a Poxwalkers down and it's just a 3-1 guy and we get to beat down, and maybe our opponent's hand is bad apart from the leyline they have like a bajillion mana. Sure, so we're going to lose our Narcomoeba. Only going to take 1. This is pretty good at taking out Poxwalkers though. Another Cephalid Coliseum. So we can do a Breakthrough at X equals 2. I think that is worth doing. We haven't found any, so we need to discard a bunch of cards. So we probably don't need another Coliseum. We're not doing Force of Will things. We're not doing Narcomoeba things. Get rid of this Satoru. That kind of does some things, actually. We can just have a guy. So maybe the Poxwalkers goes, because it's just going to die to everything. I guess we get rid of the weakest. And we just get rid of this Dredger as well. That feels pretty bad. But next turn we have Careful Study and Satoru, which is not nothing. But our opponent is making 9 mana over there. So they can put 2 counters on Walking Ballista. Calm the Great Creator. So this taps for 3, 4, 5. What do you have, opponent? How bad is it for us? At least we know what we're boarding in next turn. Mightened Lattice. Oh no, I've miscalculated here. Yeah, no, we're just dead. Okay, so I'm going to board in the things that take out Leyline. And we have to say goodbye to these Force of Wills, I think. Should be faster than our opponent most of the time anyway. Do we want a Lotus Petal to help make us faster? Do we want a Breakthrough to make us slightly more busto? Do we want a Brainstorm to help find a bounce spell? Do we want Poxwalkers to be more reliable? There's a lot of potential options here. I think I'm going to take the Breakthrough. And we're just going to bounce their Leyline and then win the game somehow. This is not a keeper. Okay, we have Chain of Vapor and Stern Dismissal. We have a Cabal Therapy that you can use on ourselves if we need to. So I think we have to put the Poxwalkers back. It's going to get shuffled in a sec anyway. Alright. 2 of them, you say? Well, well, well. Guess what? I've got 2 of them in my hand. So this needs to be an Underground Sea so we can Cabal Therapy ourselves in a couple of turns. Grim Monolith. If our opponent's hand is good as well as having 2 leylines, then we might be in trouble. Let's crack this. Underground Sea. I don't believe our opponent's going to Chain of Vapor, bouncing it back. So let's get rid of this. A land would be alright here. Not a land. So we will Stern Dismissal on our opponent's turn. City of Traitors. Let's get rid of this leyline. Well, we've done some of the hard work. What are they going to take from us? Taking the Breakthrough. That's interesting. That makes us have a better turn slightly further down the line. So I think we Cabal Therapy ourselves. Name Stinkweed Imp. And then next turn we have Satoru. And if we can start drawing some cards, we might just be able to win the game. Alright, Glimmer Void. They are floating mana. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. We could be seeing something like an Ugin this turn. Another Thought-Knot. So we lose our Satoru. That's, again, acceptable. I think we fire off this Polluted Delta. It takes a card out of our deck, which means our dredges are slightly better. Like, it's low percentages, but because we're dredging over 5 cards, that percentage builds up. I think we just have another Underground Sea. Come on, deck. Let's go good. Alright, that doesn't do anything. So we're going to get hit for 8. And then we need our next dredge to actually deliver something. Golos, this can go and find them a Cloud Post. Unless they've got a Bajuka Bog in there. In which case I'm going to scoop this game. They probably have one in their 75. No? Okay. I was so ready to scoop then. Come on, Golgari Grave-Troll. Be good to me. No, we hit nothing and we're dead. Okay. Yeah. Alright, so we finished with a 3-2 once it finishes loading, which is not a bad record. If you look at our matchups, you know, we were getting game ones against most stuff. It was only the mono blue Echo Eons Days Undoing that really buried us. And, you know, that's fine. That's going to happen sometimes. Let's talk about this deck. So the thing about Dredge is it does have quite polarizing matchups. So you saw how easy we would be able to just kind of skip through Delver decks. Whereas, and like, you know, slow, dirty blue decks are fine. But when your opponent has a ley line, it means that you have to have a certain quality of hand that has to have a bounce spell. Otherwise, you just don't get to play the game. So you have to have this bounce spell, which means that you're kind of relying on the rest of your stuff being good, and quite often it isn't. It's just like passable. So we actually had a pretty good hand there. We had 2 bounce spells to get rid of their ley lines. We had a way of enabling our dredges, but our opponent had a follow-up as well as their ley lines. So we just didn't have the time to leverage it. If we'd have had another turn, maybe we get there. If we get a bit luckier on dredges, which is another downside of the deck, you are relying on the winds of fate in terms of what you dredge. Sometimes you go, okay, I have to hit the right thing here. And you just didn't. That being said, this is quite a fundamental departure from how a lot of other dredge decks have played in my experience, because the big explosive dredge decks of old that I used to play, with your Lion's Eye Diamond, your Faithless Looting, that sort of jazz, you would be going pretty hard on your turn 1. So your turn 1 would be your big explosive combo turn a lot of the time. And instead of, like, sometimes you could win the game back in Flamekin Zealot days, but most of the time you were just putting a big board and saying, okay, can I kill you like next turn or maybe the turn after? It's kind of similar to doing like an Empty the Warrens for a bunch where you've just got this thing and your opponent has to deal with it. And then sometimes you get some incremental advantage as it goes on, but you've also stripped your hand and done all this cool stuff. And that's kind of the splashy combo side of that. This deck has a really splashy combo, but it's not a thing you're doing early on. It's kind of like a turn 3-ish thing. Like sometimes you can maybe get the ball rolling super quick if you get some really good stuff. But generally, the way this deck's constructed, it's a bit slower to actually do its thing. But you're still interacting with your opponent with, you know, some Cabal Therapies or just making some blockers or whatever. But you are kind of at the mercy of having your big spells resolve or dodging Graveyard Hate. So I think if your opponent has Graveyard Hate, like a ley line, that sort of thing, it's always going to be a little bit tricky. And I am slightly worried that because this build is a little bit slow, you know, we're trying to do like little Otherworldly Gazes, or we're like discard our card at the end of the turn, and then it's going to take us a few turns to get the fruits of our labour from dredging. So other speedy decks can definitely pick us apart and just go in underneath what we're doing, which is obviously why we've got things like Grief and Force of Will there, because we're going to need something for those decks. So we're kind of trying to prey on some of these like Beanstalk style decks, I think, and obviously Delver, as you saw, is a pretty fine matchup. So we definitely have some good matchups in and amongst it. Sometimes unusual Graveyard Hate catching you out of left field is really going to wreck your day. If you don't know they're a leyline deck and they play a leyline against you, obviously we're boarding in Chain of Vapors every game, but that's only 2 cards. I don't think you can afford to then go, okay, we'll board in a bunch of other stuff and hope that they, and you know, hope that it's good and it's the ones we need. So I'm not entirely happy playing this deck without the reps. I think if you put in the reps and sort of learn it, you can get a lot more out of it and work your matchup. But obviously the format's changing all the time and constantly evolving. People are swapping out their Graveyard Hate for different things, and there is a lot of Graveyard Hate in the format right now because, you know, Blue-Black Rescaminator is one of the top decks. Delver can take incidental hate from graveyards, so people playing things like Unlicensed Hearse in the main deck is quite common. There are a fair few Echo of Eons decks, so the Beseech Saga Storm that back-to-back challenged wins. That deck runs Echo of Eons, which is obviously devastating for us if we spend 2 or 3 turns building up our graveyard and it just gets wiped. We can kind of be left with nothing, and that's back to square one whilst our opponent's got a fresh grip in their Storm deck. So no good on that front. Something else I will say that is a positive for sure, though, is I was really worried that we wouldn't have enough stuff to bring back, and it felt like we kind of did, to be honest. And we were getting to cast our Otherworldly Gazes from the graveyard, a bit more than I was expecting when I've played previous blue dredge builds. But what I will say alongside that is if we keep like one land of hands, which, you know, sometimes we're going to do, we go get our island, we do our thing, and we don't have a second land, it might be difficult to get anything back. And there were definitely games where it took us a while to get a creature back. So are we supposed to maybe run another Ichorid just to tweak those numbers? I didn't really do very much with the Brainstorm, and I boarded it out a lot. Obviously, it is quite a powerful card to get some stuff going, but I don't think you can keep it in an opener necessarily as like the thing you're doing. I think it's a little bit of a trap if you don't have a land and a fetch land at the very least, because are you going to be able to find a dredger? So if you're relying on this Brainstorm to find you either a dredger or a way of putting a dredger into the graveyard and it misses, that might just be a whole game done. So I think it's quite dangerous when we can have something that's maybe a little bit more impactful in terms of making us reliable, like something like an Ichorid, or just having something that does, you know, draw cards, discard cards, put things in the graveyard somehow. That might be more worthwhile to do. I think once upon a time people used to play Shriekhorn, which is a 1-mana artifact with tap, mill 3, and it has 3 charge counters on it. So it can mill you 9, and it mills you 6 in the first turn. So it's basically like an Otherworldly Gaze that's an artifact. I think I'd be more inclined to play that in the Brainstorm. Obviously, the Brainstorm helps with your blue count for Force of Will, which is definitely relevant. So there's a bunch of options that you can sort of tweak with this deck. And obviously, this is a relatively new list that Mahfouz Van Gogh has been working on. And I imagine it's going to look very different in a couple of weeks' time after he's, you know, got a bunch more games in it. I think he's got 2 5-0s with it at this point by the time I'm recording, 1 or 2. So he's getting some numbers with it, but he's a bit of a savant when it comes to Dredge these days. You should definitely check out his content. There's a link in the description to this video. By all means, check it out, especially if you like Dredge. If you don't like Dredge, I guess maybe it's not the content for you, but it's still very good content. I do recommend it. All right. I think I'm done talking about this one. I do like Dredge. This isn't really inspiring me that much. I think it is obviously powerful and it's doing things, and I do like the way it wins. It is pretty cool. The thing we're doing is quite powerful. Obviously, certain decks interact with it in a very favourable way, and we're going to have some polarizing matchups. That's not necessarily the way I like to play Magic the Gathering all the time. I do like to have a little bit more tools to sort of work games out. I can definitely see why people would want to pick this up and play it, though. It is an absolute ton of fun. And if you learn all your matchups, you can definitely get a lot more out of this deck than just me jamming it one time into a bunch of decks with not really having any sideboard plan or anything before I went in. Okay, this time I am done. So remember to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.